When an animal chooses very consciously to take a journey of death and transition, there is something really beautiful and powerful that happens during that process for you and your pet. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Cat TV. My name is Jasmine. Today, I want to share with you and talk to you about the process of unplugging and energetically disconnecting the connection between you and your beloved pet when your animal is choosing to transition very consciously, and for you as their custodian in this life to take that journey with them. Before I realized that Tilly was indeed taking this journey, I remember driving to yoga one day. Probably she transitioned in December 2025. This was probably in maybe this September, thereabouts, so about 3 months prior. And I remember driving to yoga. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I felt extremely emotional. And I was feeling a lot of fear in my body. And I remember asking thoughts like, is Tilly dying? Is Tilly dying? Like, is this about Tilly? And the fear of losing her was extremely high and extremely strong for me. And I arrived in the yoga class and we were doing a yin yoga. And I remember just lying on the mat and the tears started to shed. And we did this one process where we were lying on our back and there was something like a bolster underneath our back, and it was designed to really push us up so we could elevate and open the heart. And that set me off. I started crying and I had to get up and leave the room and just sob because I didn't want to disturb everybody else within that classroom. And I remember saying, it's about Tilly. Like, I can't lose her. She's my beloved. Like, she was like going through some challenges around lung disease at this moment. And I was just super emotional, but I didn't equate it and think that she was transitioning, she was leaving. And then some time passed, and then I remember, fast forward a couple of months, that I could see that she was not eating. We were not getting better. I was still holding to the idea and the concept that we could heal and we could get through this. But my inner self, my wisdom self, was like, is there any point? And I was having moments of extreme emotion throughout, and moments where I would just be intensely crying. And Tilly was still with me, but they were like, the emotion was so strong, it was so high, and I could feel the fear again. And then it was probably, I think, at the late November, early December of 2024, and I had woken up. We had a night together, and I woken up and I was just started crying again. And I had to get out of bed until he was still on my bed, and I went into the kitchen and I just bawled my eyes out. I was deep sorrow crying. I was grief crying. I was yearning. Remember standing there going like, it's Tilly, I just want my Till back. I just want my Till back. I just want my Till back. And my mum said to me, has she gone? I said, no, but I just want her back. Where is she? Where's my girl? Where's she going? And I was crying so heavily, and it was like a sorrow. It wasn't even a sob. It was like everything was pouring out of me, and my legs felt so weak that I just collapsed to the floor. And it was then probably, I don't know, maybe it was like 3 weeks after that time, maybe a month. I think it was about 3 weeks that she actually transitioned. And the day that she actually passed, I didn't cry at all. I just held there. I was feeling very calm, very peaceful. And she was sitting on my chest, and her head was nestled into my chest, and she was wrapped up here like a little baby, like a newborn child. And I was kissing her and I was talking to her and I was telling her that, you know, Mama will go on to this journey and do this next path, this next part of her work in this world. And when the time's right, I'll be right here waiting for you to come back. And what I realized about those moments, which I didn't understand at the time, is that when an animal is choosing very, very, very consciously to leave their body and take a journey of transition, that process happens over many months, and it is a very gradual process of like they go from eating a lot to just progressively eating less and less and less. Obviously, they start to withdraw. They start to perhaps not have less human contact. They start to behave differently. They don't go to the same places. They're not as engaged in their normal activities, amongst others. But one of the things that happens is that the energetic cords that have been imprinted and connect you and your pet together start to unplug. So if you imagine that there is a cord plugged into your pet and also plugged into you, these cords start to unplug. And the impact of that, or the ripple or the effect of that, is that you start to feel highly emotional and you start crying, you start sobbing, you start having reactions, and you start feeling the effects of these. And so when I look back with that new information, I can see that moment on the yoga, when I was driving into yoga, this was a moment where one of the cords between Tilly and I had been unplugged, had been released. There were still some cords in there. And then that one big moment where my feet completely collapsed and I just fell to the ground. This was the biggest moment where the majority of the cords were unplugged. Because from that moment, like, she didn't meow, there was barely any purring, there was like no head buzz, she wasn't grooming herself, she didn't want to come into my room, and like for 15 years, that's the only place she wanted to be. She would sleep on the end of the bed if she did come in, or I brought her in instead of coming up. She wasn't eating. And so that was a really big moment. And why does this happen? This happens so when that moment comes where we say goodbye and the physical body dies and the spirit and the soul leaves, it is less traumatic and less confrontational for when it happens for you and your pet, because your pet wants you there. Your pet wants you there. You've spent this whole journey together, and in their final moment, they want you. But they don't want to feel your heartache and your sorrow and your loss and you just to be in an uncontrollable sense of crying. They want to have you be there for them, to be able to hold that space with love and presence and reverence and devotion and sacredness, to be able to let them to transition with so much peace. And now I have that understanding that I want to share it with you. And I want to give you that information that not every death process and not every animal chooses it as consciously as what Tilly did. Sometimes it just happens. It's a shock. They're there one day and they're gone the next. And that process of conscious death is not as available. But if your pet is choosing a conscious death and you choose a conscious death as well, which means you choose to be present through that whole process. You choose to midwifery yourself and your beloved pet through the portal into the into the non-physical realms. Then you are initiated in conscious death as well. And if you find yourselves waking up and feeling extremely emotional, you find an intense fear running through your body, then understand that this can be the process of the energetic cords unplugging from you, from your heart. Because when they choose to come into your life, energetic cords get imprinted and connected and attached into your field and into your heart. And so when they choose to leave, the same thing needs to happen. And I didn't have this information when it started, but now I do. And so I trust that serves, and I trust that helps somebody now, or maybe in the future, maybe at a later period of time. I trust that this video will come to the right people at the right time, at the right places. And this process also helps the animal to split from their body, because as they pass away and choose to take that journey, there is a journey over several days, sometimes even several weeks, and it could even be over a couple of months, where the spirit and the physical body need to separate, because when they come together, they become enmeshed as one. And as they choose to leave, there does have to be a journey where the body and the spirit disconnects, and the soul and the spirit leaves their body. And this is also part of that process that they go through. So I trust that serves. I trust that helps somebody. And once again, thank you so much for watching. I'm incredibly grateful for all of the viewers and everybody that watches this. I really do offer these videos as a way to serve and add value and share my coded transmissions and experiences with you in order to help others. As always, please like, subscribe, and leave your comments down below. I love reading each and every single one of them. And until next time, remember to follow the light.